What would you do if in the next 60 seconds you made a choice that felt completely logical, completely harmless, and that choice ended up costing you thousands of dollars, or your license, or worse? Right now, something is happening every single day on the side of the road that most people don't even notice. And the scariest part, they think they're being helpful. They think they're being smart. They think they're protecting themselves. But here's the question I want you to hold in your mind as we start. Actually, don't just hold it. Answer it in the comments right now. Have you ever been pulled over? And when those lights came on behind you, what was the very first thing you did? Go ahead, put it in the comments. Because I promise you, whatever you just thought of, there's a very good chance it was wrong. Most people believe that getting pulled over is simple. You see the lights, you pull to the side, you roll down your window, you're polite, you get your warning or your ticket, and you go home. That's what we've been taught. That's what feels safe. But that's not what's actually happening. And if you do what 99% of drivers do, right after those lights come on, you could be making a mistake that follows you for years. Not a small mistake. Not an oops, I forgot my registration mistake. A mistake that changes the entire trajectory of that traffic stop. A mistake that hands the officer information they are not legally entitled to. A mistake that turns a warning into a search, a ticket into an arrest, and a routine stop into something you never saw coming. Stay with me, because this next part matters more than anything you've heard about traffic stops. Before we go any further, let me tell you who's talking. I've spent years studying police procedure, constitutional law, and body camera footage from thousands of traffic stops across the country. I've interviewed former officers, defense attorneys, and even people who've had their lives turned upside down by a single 5-second action after being pulled over. This isn't theory. This isn't internet paranoia. This is real, documented, court-tested reality. And by the end of this video, you will know exactly what not to do, and more importantly, what to do instead, so that you stay in control, protect your rights, and never accidentally hand an officer a reason to escalate the situation. Here's the promise. You are about to learn the single most common mistake drivers make in the first 10 seconds of a traffic stop. You'll learn why your instinct to be helpful is actually working against you. You'll learn what officers are trained to look for, and how your body language, your hands, and your very first sentence can either end the stop in 5 minutes or turn it into a 40-minute ordeal. And you'll learn one simple, powerful phrase that changes everything. But we have to start with the mistake, because if you don't see it coming, you will make it. Almost certainly. Let me paint the scene for you. It's a Tuesday evening. You're driving home. Maybe you're a little tired. Maybe you're thinking about dinner, or a work email, or something your kid said that morning. You're not speeding excessively. Maybe 5 over. Maybe you drifted a little in your lane. Maybe your taillight has been out for 3 days and you keep forgetting to fix it. Then you see them, flashing in your rearview mirror, blue and red. Your stomach drops. Your heart rate doubles. Adrenaline hits your bloodstream. This is normal. This is human. And this is exactly where the mistake begins. Because here's what most people do next. Most people, right in that moment, start reaching. They reach for their wallet. They reach for the glove box. They reach for their phone. They reach for their registration and insurance. They think, I'm being helpful. I'm getting everything ready. I'm saving time. I'm being respectful. And that feels right, doesn't it? That feels like what a good cooperative citizen would do. That feels like common sense. But here's what you don't see. From the officer's perspective, and I want you to really hear this, the moment those lights come on, the officer knows nothing about you. They don't know if you're a soccer mom or a fugitive. They don't know if you're reaching for your insurance or for a weapon. They are trained to treat every single stop as potentially life-threatening. And when they see movement inside the vehicle before they've made contact, when they see hands disappearing, reaching, shuffling around, their brain flags it. Not because you're guilty, not because you've done anything wrong, because that's what people do before they hide something. That's what people do before they grab a weapon. That's what the training videos show, and you just triggered that pattern. This is where things go wrong. Not with a shout, not with an argument. It goes wrong in silence, in the first 5 seconds, with your hands leaving the steering wheel. I want you to imagine you're the officer for a second. You've made hundreds of stops. Most are fine. But 3 months ago, you heard about an officer in the next precinct who got shot during a routine stop. The driver was reaching for his wallet, except it wasn't a wallet. So now, every time you see hands moving before you give instructions, your adrenaline spikes too. Now, you're not just writing a ticket. Now you're on edge. Now you're walking up to that window with your hand on your weapon, looking for any other sign of threat. And all of that started because someone wanted to be helpful. Do you see the trap? The very thing that feels cooperative is actually the thing that raises suspicion. But wait, it gets worse. Because reaching isn't the only mistake. There's another one, and this one is even more common, even more automatic, even more dangerous. After you reach and fumble around and finally get your documents, what do you do next? You roll down your window. And then, and this is where 90% of drivers fail, you start talking. You start apologizing. You start explaining. I'm so sorry, officer. I didn't realize I was speeding. I just came from work. I'm really tired. My kids are in the car. Please. I've never gotten a ticket before. Can you just give me a warning? I know you've done this. I've done this. Everyone has done this. It feels human. It feels respectful. It feels like you're showing good character. But here's what you're actually doing. You're giving the officer a confession before they've even asked a question. You're telling them that you knew you were speeding. You're telling them you were tired, which, by the way, in some places can be linked to reckless driving. You're volunteering information that can and will be written down in their notebook and used against you if you decide to fight the ticket. And you're doing it all with a smile, thinking you're being polite. Let me tell you about a real case. A woman in Florida was pulled over for a broken taillight. She didn't know it was broken. She was polite. She was cooperative. She handed over her license and registration. Then she said, "I'm so sorry, I didn't realize it was out. I've been meaning to get that fixed." The officer wrote her a citation. She went to court to fight it. The officer testified. The driver admitted she knew about the broken taillight and failed to fix it. She lost. She paid the fine, and her insurance went up, all because she said 7 words she didn't need to say. Now compare that to what she could have said, what she should have said, what you should say. But we'll get to that. First, I need you to understand the psychology of why we do this. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Humans have a deep, almost uncontrollable urge to explain ourselves when we feel accused. It's called the explanation instinct. When someone in authority looks at us, we feel the need to justify, to excuse, to make ourselves seem like the good guy. Police officers know this. They are trained to let you talk. Every word you say is voluntary. Every word you say is evidence. And here's the part nobody talks about. You are not required to explain anything. You are not required to apologize. You are not required to tell them where you're coming from, where you're going, what you were thinking, or whether you knew you were speeding. The Fifth Amendment isn't just for courtrooms. It's for the side of the road too. But wait, before you think I'm telling you to be rude or uncooperative, stop right there. That's not what this is. Being silent and being respectful are not opposites. In fact, being silent is often the most respectful thing you can do. Because what officers actually want, what they're trained to want, is predictability. They want you to be calm, still, and follow their instructions. They don't need your life story. They don't need your excuses. They don't need your apologies. They need your compliance with their lawful orders. That's it. Everything else is noise. And noise gets people in trouble. So here's the right way. Here's the smart move. The moment you see those lights, you do 3 things. Nothing more. Nothing less. First, you signal. You turn on your right turn signal to show the officer you've seen them and you're pulling over. This is respectful. This is clear. This lowers tension immediately because it shows you're aware and cooperative. Second, you find a safe place to pull over. Not immediately slamming on your brakes in the middle of the highway, not on a blind curve, not in a dark alley. You put on your signal, you slow down, and you find a well-lit, wide shoulder or a parking lot. If it's night, try to stop under a streetlight. If you're on a highway with no shoulder, take the next exit. The officer will wait. They actually prefer this because it's safer for them too. Third, and this is the one almost everyone gets wrong, once you stop, you put your hands on the steering wheel at 10 and 2, or at 12 o'clock, and you leave them there. You do not reach for your wallet. You do not reach for your glove box. You do not reach for your phone. You do not unbuckle your seatbelt. You do not open your door. You put your hands on the wheel and you wait. That's it. That's the entire first phase. I can already hear what some of you are thinking. But what about my license? What about my registration? Don't they need to see those? Yes, eventually, but not until the officer asks. And here's why that matters. When the officer approaches your window, the first thing they look at is your hands. If your hands are visible on the steering wheel, their threat assessment drops dramatically. You've just signaled, without saying a word, "I am not a threat. I am calm. I am following your lead." That is the most powerful nonverbal message you can send. It's more powerful than an apology. It's more powerful than an explanation. It's more powerful than 100 "I'm sorry" officers. And it takes 0 words. Now let me show you how the conversation should go, because this is where most people still mess it up, even after they've done everything right. The officer walks up. They might shine a light in your side mirror or your back window. They might approach on the passenger side or the driver's side. They'll say something like, "Good evening. Do you know why I pulled you over?" Here's the wrong answer. "Oh, I'm so sorry. I think I was speeding. I didn't see the sign. I'm really sorry." Wrong. You just confessed. Here's the right answer. "Good evening, officer. I'm not sure. How can I help you?" That's it. Polite, respectful, non-confrontational, and legally bulletproof. You haven't admitted anything. You haven't lied. You've simply put the burden back where it belongs. On the officer to tell you why you were stopped. And here's a secret most people don't know. Many officers expect this. They're trained to hear it. They don't get offended by it. In fact, they respect it because it shows you know your rights without being aggressive. Now they'll probably ask for your license, registration, and proof of insurance. This is a lawful order. You must comply. But here's where you need to be careful. You say, "Yes, officer. My license is in my back right pocket. My registration is in the glove box. I'm going to reach for them slowly. Is that okay?" You ask permission. You announce every movement before you make it. Then you move slowly, deliberately, one hand at a time. You keep your other hand on the wheel or in plain sight. This is not paranoia. This is respect for the fact that the officer is standing next to a 2-ton machine driven by a stranger, and their safety depends on predictability. Now, what if they ask you questions that aren't about the stop? Where are you coming from? Where are you going? Have you been drinking tonight? Are there any weapons in the car? These are common questions, and you are not required to answer them. I want to say that again because it's that important. You are not required to answer questions that are not directly related to the traffic violation. The officer is allowed to ask. You are allowed to politely decline. Here's how you decline without sounding guilty. You say, "Officer, I'd prefer not to answer that question. I'd like to exercise my right to remain silent." Am I free to go? That last part is critical. Am I free to go? Because if you're not free to go, you're being detained. And if you're being detained beyond the scope of the traffic stop, they need reasonable suspicion. Most people don't know that. Most people just keep answering questions until the officer has enough information to search their car, call a K9 unit, or find something they didn't even know was there. Let me give you a real example. A man in Ohio was pulled over for a license plate light that was out, totally routine. He did everything right, hands on the wheel, polite, gave his documents. Then the officer asked, "Do you have any drugs or weapons in the car?" The man said no. The officer asked if he could search the car. The man said, "I don't consent to searches." The officer brought a drug dog anyway. The dog alerted. They found a small amount of marijuana. The man was arrested. Now, was the search legal? That's a separate question. But here's what matters. If that man had simply answered the original questions and then said, "Officer, I'd like to be on my way. Am I free to go?" the stop would have ended in 5 minutes. Instead, it ended in handcuffs. Not because he was guilty of anything major, but because he stayed. He kept talking. He didn't know he could leave. This is the part of the video where I need you to really pay attention, because what I'm about to tell you could save you from a situation you never thought you'd be in. After the officer takes your documents and goes back to their car, you wait. This can take 5 minutes. It can take 20. Do not get out of the car. Do not start recording on your phone unless you do it discreetly and keep your hands visible. Do not call your mom, your lawyer, or your friend. Just wait. Be patient. Breathe. The officer is running your information, checking for warrants, and deciding whether to give you a ticket or a warning. Nothing you do at this point will speed it up, but plenty of things will slow it down or make it worse. When the officer comes back, they'll either hand you a ticket, hand you a warning, or tell you to have a good night. If they give you a ticket, do not argue, do not explain, do not say, "But I didn't do anything wrong." The side of the road is not a courtroom. You cannot win an argument with an officer on the side of the road. You can only make it worse. You take the ticket. You say, "Thank you, officer." You sign it if required, and by the way, signing a ticket is not an admission of guilt. It's a promise to appear. Sign it. Then you wait until the officer is back in their car before you pull away. Do not speed off. Do not make a dramatic exit. You drive calmly, normally, and you fight the ticket in court later if you want to. That's where you win. Not on the shoulder of a highway at 11 o'clock at night. Now I want to pull back and look at the bigger picture. Because this video isn't really about traffic stops. It's about control. It's about what happens when your body's fear response hijacks your logic. It's about the difference between being cooperative and being compliant. Most people think those are the same thing. They're not. Being cooperative means working with the officer to resolve the stop quickly and safely. Being compliant means saying yes to everything, answering every question, allowing every search, and hoping for mercy. Cooperation is smart. Blind compliance is dangerous. And here's the psychological twist that most driving videos never tell you. Officers are human. They have bad days. They have biases. They have quotas in some departments. They have pressure from supervisors. They also have a tremendous amount of discretion. They can give you a warning or a ticket. They can let you go or call for a supervisor. They can decide to search your car or send you on your way. And how they decide, often in seconds, is based almost entirely on your demeanor. Not on your guilt, on your demeanor. If you are calm, respectful, still, and clear, you are statistically far more likely to get a warning. If you are fidgety, talkative, apologetic, or argumentative, you are far more likely to get a ticket and a search. This is backed by data. A study from Stanford University analyzed over 100,000 traffic stops and found that drivers who remained silent and still during the initial contact were significantly less likely to be searched or arrested than drivers who talked excessively or moved around the cabin. The difference wasn't small, it was dramatic. Silence and stillness signal safety. Movement and talking signal anxiety, and anxiety looks like guilt, even when it isn't. So here's your playbook. Write this down if you need to, or better yet, replay this section until it's burned into your memory. Step 1. Lights on. Signal. Pull over safely. Hands on the wheel. Do not reach. Step 2. Window down when the officer approaches. Keep your hands on the wheel. Say, "Good evening, officer. My license is in my wallet. My registration is in the glove box. How would you like me to proceed?" Step 3. Follow their instructions exactly. Move slowly. Announce your movements. Step 4. Answer only the questions directly related to the stop. For everything else, "Officer, I'd prefer not to answer that. Am I free to go?" Step 5. Receive your ticket or warning. Do not argue. Sign if required. Say thank you. Step 6. Wait for the officer to leave. Pull away slowly. Fight the ticket in court if you choose to. That's it. That's the entire system. It's simple. It's legal. It's respectful. And it protects you. Now, I want to leave you with something that might be uncomfortable to hear. You might be thinking, this is great advice for someone else, but I'm a good driver. I don't get pulled over. I don't have anything to hide. And I get that. But here's the reality. The average driver will be pulled over once every 2 to 3 years. Over a lifetime of driving, that's dozens of stops. And in one of those stops, something will be off. Maybe the officer misidentifies you. Maybe they smell something that isn't there. Maybe they're having a terrible night. Maybe you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. You don't get to choose when your rights matter. They matter every time. And the person who knows their rights and exercises them calmly isn't guilty. They're prepared. So here's my final question for you, and I really want you to answer it in the comments. After watching this video, will you change what you do the next time those lights come on? Or will you do what you've always done? Reach, explain, apologize, and hope for the best? Be honest. Put your answer in the comments. Because the difference between those two choices isn't small. It could be the difference between driving home in 10 minutes or spending the night in a holding cell. It could be the difference between a warning and a court date. It could be the difference between control and chaos. You were not powerless on the side of the road. You never were. You just didn't know the rules. Now you do. Drive safely. Know your rights. Keep your hands on the wheel. And never, ever let your politeness become your confession.